I see Christine is appearing in all her glory of colors, her springtime colors. So I guess we can get going. And the first item on the agenda is COVID-19 response update. So maybe we'll start with you, Joe.
Sure. So from our point of view, things have been going, I think, reasonably well. We still don't have any confirmed cases that I'm aware of, which is a fine thing. We may have one individual that's self-quarantining in New Salem now. We're not sure. We're trying to confirm that today. But beyond that, things are going relatively smoothly, other than I think the overall annoyance factor from folks having to be stuck inside. I think some people are getting a little edgy about that. We've picked that up from various sources. So we've just been monitoring the situation and trying to stay as safe as possible, and social distancing and all the other good stuff. I don't have a whole lot else to report, really. So I'll let someone else take over.
Well, that sounds like good news. Lonnie, do you have anything to add?
I've been going through the good neighbors, and everything is smooth sailing.
Good.
That's all I have.
This is Barbara.
Oh, I do.
We also have.
I'm sorry. I do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Over to you, Barbara.
Okay, no. I do have one. I forgot all about it. We thought we might have had an exposure at the firehouse last week. We did not, it turns out. But 5 of us went down and got the free test at the Big E that was available to first responders, and we've all tested negative. So.
Oh, well, that is good news. Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barbara?
Yep. Nothing new really here. I mean, we have not had a single report from Lisa White. So we continue to not have any cases, which is great. Good Neighbors went fine on Sunday. They're using the town hall again, and Ed did a fantastic job setting up the inside of the town hall. I mean, there's plastic sheeting dividing the sections, and I mean, it's masterful. And they report that everything went very well. There were no problems. They actually had fewer people than normal, possibly because it was Easter. So it looks like that's going to be able to continue. Not too much else is going on. I let Patty Scutari and the crew at Good Neighbor at the country store know that they could get tested now for free at the Big E down there if they needed it. And Joe was kind enough to share the phone number with me, so I let them have that. And I'm just I've been working on trying to track down supplies that are supposed to be around somewhere. Haven't found them yet, but I'll keep looking. That's about it, really.
Barbara, you mentioned the
Barbara,
testing.
this is Phil.
Yeah, hi, Phil.
Hi.
Go ahead, Phil.
I just was following up on the testing. Thank you, Dan. Following up on the testing, is there some criteria where public officials, or is it more just people that are in stores? What is the criteria for being allowed or encouraged to have a test?
Joe can probably answer that question better than I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the testing site that's down there at the Big E was initially brought online in conjunction with the one that they have at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough last Thursday. The initial focus was first responders only. It has now, which of course, fire, police, etc. It has now been expanded to grocery store workers. I think there's also healthcare professionals. I want to say funeral directors, but I don't believe it has gone too much. As far as I know, it hasn't gone beyond that. So it is a free nasal swab type of test. It took roughly 48 hours to get our results back. Some of them actually came back even sooner than that. But to my knowledge, there is no expansion of that at this point in time for others.
So Barbara, you mentioned
Well,
that
that's good.
you told the people at the country store about the testing. That's because they're a grocery store?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Well,
the
I
point
did
to remember
notice that-
about it is,
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, Dan. Yeah, it's a snapshot in time, essentially. So it doesn't mean that 3 days from now you could encounter someone and have the disease pass to you. It would not reflect, obviously, anything like that. So it's just at that particular time, you've tested negative. So that's what it is.
And I think
Yeah.
Patty Scutari is aware of that. I mean, you know, they're not rushing down there to get tested. She said they were all feeling fine, so they'll wait until they feel like they really need a test, if that happens.
Okay. I did see that it seems like the number of new cases are starting to drop off in Franklin County and in Massachusetts over the past 2 or 3 days. So that may be a good sign.
Yeah, we didn't have any deaths in the
Yeah,
last few days.
Correct. Franklin County is still, outside the outside the islands, the lowest count, if you will, of both cases and deaths, which is a fine thing so far. So let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, first responders and Board of Health, for coming.
You're
Any further
welcome.
questions?
Thank you.
Lori?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the group here, just to, hopefully it won't be long. I did get a call from a resident who indicated that maybe the town might have interest in somehow supporting the mask making that's happening for residents. And I guess I just wanted to put it out there and get people's feelings, if they can see any ways to do that, or, you know, if that seems like a role for the town. And if,
Lori,
you know,
I did talk to Phoebe Walker about that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I said if the Board of Health were to order some masks for people who are in quarantine and isolation, now we don't have anybody there yet, but, you know, we could have tomorrow. Would that possibly be a legitimate use of our emergency funds? And she thought that it might be. So I'm wondering if maybe you and I can have a separate conversation, maybe tomorrow, if you can give me the names of the people, because I don't know everybody that's doing it. I mean, we would have to set up some sort of system and determine a price, you know. There would be
Right.
some things we'd have to work out, but I'm certainly willing to dig into it and see what we can do.
Okay, and did she have any concerns? I know I talked to Lou about this, because she's one of the mask makers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's several different types that they're making. You know, different people are making them in different ways. Did she have any sort of, I don't know, minimal requirements that might?
What she said was that there would need to be some other material of some sort in between the layers.
Okay.
And what I would suggest, like I've seen a few different designs that people are doing, she also suggested that they could possibly be worn over like N95 masks. This is assuming we had N95 masks to give to people in isolation or quarantine, but we don't. But something that I think would be easily adjustable, or not, you know, some of them seem to have to be almost like sized to the person's face, depending on the style that they're doing. So
Right.
I would think the most flexible of as far as sizing goes, and something with some sort of an inner barrier or something besides just cloth is what she had mentioned.
Okay.
So
And just one
Dan,
final thought, and that's fine. Sorry.
Joe?
No, I just wanted to add to all of that. So there's been some. I can talk to Asa more about this, but you guys know what the blue shop towels look like? Boxes of blue shop towels. Everybody seen these
Yeah.
things? If you've
Like
worked
they
in
sell
like
at
an
Home
auto shop.
Depot?
Okay, so that material, yes, they're available, I'm sure a lot of places. That particular material is supposedly good to be able to use for this type of thing, because of the ability for it to minimize, have the right particle size transfer. I would not, if you had an N95 mask, you'd be no need to put one of these things over the top of it. That, that's just would be sort of a waste.
I think her thought was just to make the N95 last longer. Not that it was any more protective, but it might save some wear and tear on the N95.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, that's
the
good to know,
degradation
though.
of the N95, what's that? The N95s degrade from the inside out because you're breathing on it and getting it wet. That's what degrades it more than anything.
Okay.
And there are methodologies out there for reusing them. I mean, you probably have heard of them by now, with the paper bags and holding them for a week, and people putting them in ovens and UV light. And there's various other things that have come across that we haven't tried any of, but there are ways to reutilize those things. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know about the those blue rags or whatever you want to call them. That should be easily available.
This is Nancy. I have a question
Yeah, I'll have
about
to
that, Joe.
follow. Go ahead.
I've been making masks. If you use these blue shop rags in between, can they be washed?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to.
Okay.
I'll have to ask
I
Ace.
would-
Ace is the one that told me about this. He had seen it he had seen something, seen something somewhere. I'll have to ask him.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Laura?
And while I still have everybody, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one other thought, which was, so Barbara and I can talk about that, but it might be worth thinking about this with a bigger scope that wouldn't involve Board of Health funding, or, in terms of people might need masks even more when, they're allowed to go back to work again, or, where they're really, relaxing the regulations because people are then going to be out and about, but the virus is still out there. So that's just, and so that in that case, we don't have to, think about it in the near future, but I think it might be worth just think about it a little more, just to see what people think, if that could be expanded to not just people in quarantine, but a wider scope of supporting the mask making for more people.
I think that's a good
I don't even know
point.
how I feel about it in general. So that's why I wanted to put it to a wider group. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori.
Christine, you had something?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. We're the first responders.
Dan,
Oh,
and I have one other
you
thing.
know,
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I started, I talked to Nancy about this briefly today. We're starting to work on this giant spreadsheet that we've been given for tracking and assembling all the costs associated with this. So I just want to put it out there to everybody that whatever you have for cost documentation, if you want to start funneling that our way, we'll start to incorporate that into this whole process. So when it does come time to put in for it all, we don't have to compile it all at the last minute or months down the line or something like that. So we're working on it now, or at least starting the process.
Good, thanks.
And that does include volunteer costs. So volunteer costs are allowed. I'm not sure how we would quantify all the stuff with the mask making and everything. I mean, because it's not being done necessarily under town direction. So I'm not sure how you would do that, but there may be a way to finagle that if we could get proper documentation on, time involved and individuals and materials involved. I mean, you'd have to have the right documentation essentially to go after it.
So Joe, can I ask a question?
So, yeah, sure. Yep.
So, for example, we had some time ago at the beginning of this, we had some laminated posters made up about COVID that we put up around town. So that's a legitimate expense. Now, should we pay that out of our budget and then get reimbursed for it? Is that how it works?
Yes, that's how it works.
Essentially, yes. I mean, if you,
Okay.
yeah, that is exactly how it works. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I know we have Phil on board here to talk about his proposal to increase the salary of the RATS workers. And that probably could be paid for out of the CARE Act. And I was going to suggest maybe we should look at some sort of stipend, extra stipend for all the people that are on the front lines in town, namely the first responders and Nancy and others who are still going into work. It's something that
I would add the highway crew.
highway.
Sorry,
Right.
Dan, I would say we want to throw the highway crew into that conversation.
Yep.
So those stipends that we're considering are refundable or they're reimbursable?
I think they would be.
Okay.
Yes, as I understand it, there's a lot of stuff to sort through, but I believe that would be correct, especially if it's not a permanent raise in pay, but it's essentially something that's associated for the duration of this event, which of course we don't know the duration of the event, but yes, I believe that is a recoverable cost. So, thank you.
Can I ask, this is Josh, can I ask about the country store and maybe Diamonds, because they're also retail?
What's the question about them, Josh? What's the
Can they
question?
get an increase, their extra cost increased, their pay increased, and their, and get reimbursed?
Well, no, that's not a town function.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So are we pretty much done with the first responders at this point in the COVID-19 response beyond the salary increases? Christine?
Well, I just want to say, if any department is spending any money, they should be keeping track of it. Like Phil asked that question about the pay. So, and funneling it to Joe. So we have it all available when we need to search that out. And so just any extra expense anybody is paying, spending based on the pandemic should be recorded with Joe. And Joe, I appreciate it that you've got that whole spreadsheet going. I think that's going to make our life much easier in the long run. That's all.
Yes, we hope so. It's a little convoluted to get through, but we just got started on it today. I am going to work closely with Nancy on it as we get further along in this process to make sure that we're doing it right. We've done this kind of thing before a little bit, a couple times with the ice storm and stuff, so we have some familiarity with it, but still, it's a convoluted process.
Anything further for the first responders? Except thank you for being the boots on the ground.
You're welcome.
Do you need anything else from the Board of Health?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming,
Barbara?
Barbara, and Joe, and Lonnie.
All right, have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Barbara?
bye guys, thank you.
Barbara, I do have a question. This is Christine.
Yes,
Barbara?
okay. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I saw your invitation to your meeting on Monday. Would you like a select board person to be at that meeting, or were you just including us?
If you have any particular questions, I mean, things aren't too exciting right now at the Board of Health. Yay, I'm glad. But if you have any questions and you would like to dial in, we'd be happy to have you with us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, Barbara,
Bye.
thanks. So it looks like the next thing on our agenda is a debt exclusion letter for town clerk.
Well, we have Phil Delory on here at 7:20 if you want to cover that.
All right, okay,
Rats pay increase.
yep. You have anything further to say, Phil?
Thank you, Nancy.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. So the conversation about some compensation for the rats, it came from, a sense that they're having close proximity to people that could potentially infect them. They're doing a major job for the town. It's a great benefit. And I'm glad to hear that, Dan, that you brought up other persons that are having close contact and providing great benefits to the town, because our conversation at our meeting last night spread into the road crew as well. And I was having a hard time resolving, what's equitable. So the compensation or the hazard pay, whatever we call it, isn't necessarily to reimburse direct expenses. It's not to, provide specific items for them. I have come to feel that more of a encouragement or a show of appreciation. So the conversation got a little strained for us. For me, was trying to how to equate it between the highway crew that works 40 hours and sees a tremendously large number less than the rats crew. And the rats crew works 18 hours or 19 hours, but they're seeing 100 people twice a week. So again, it's not an expense reimbursement. I think it's more of a show, by the town, some appreciation. So the difference was, do we offer something? Do we create something that is hourly based? Do we, create something on exposure based? And I've been wrestling with it. And the only thing I come up with that seems equitable is that we have a flat rate maybe per person, whether they work 19 hours or 40 hours, whether they're, high exposure or occasional exposure. So I guess I wanted to throw that open to the group to see, when we talk about this, some compensation, what kind of parameters do we want to consider? And I appreciated that everyone seemed to be in favor of this idea and seems so still. But again, it's where the rubber meets the road kind of thing. What are the details? I'll give you an example. For instance, with the rats people working 19 hours a week, and if we offered them a $5 an hour benefit because of their involvement with the public, that works out to approximately 90. It does work out to I'm sorry, on 18 hours a week, I figured it works out to $90 a week. And for 11 weeks, that's $180 a week. It works out to somewhere just in the range of $2,000 between now and the end of the fiscal year. If we did the same thing for the highway department, on the other hand, where they have 3 employees and work 40 hours, that $5 an hour would amount to about $6,600 between now and the end of the fiscal year. So I think the risk is different. I think the money is obviously different. And I'm back to the idea of, some show of appreciation is maybe a sum as opposed to an hourly rate. So I guess I'd like to hear what the group thinks about that, or how we might resolve that.
Can I ask a question?
Christine?
So my
Yes.
question is really for Nancy. Nancy, do you feel like you are getting exposed to people much in your 20 hours a week at Wendell?
No. I feel if I were, I wouldn't work there. And I think it's a wonderful thing to do. But I do feel as though most of the people that I've seen at work are working alone in a locked office. And as much as I would, welcome some extra money, this money that we're going to be reimbursed, if we're reimbursed, is months, perhaps years down the road. Mm. I think that we need to be careful with our budget right now. we can't spend what we don't have. And that's in this fiscal year. And then we don't even know what's happening in the next fiscal year. And I understand, the concept of equity. And I feel like at least the highway department, they are out and they do see each other. They have more exposure. I would be more in favor of that and the RATS people. But beyond that, I have a little bit of a hard time justifying everybody getting more money just because they showed up to work. That's what I'm getting paid to do. That's me.
Thank you, Dan.
Lori?
I just wanted a clearer idea of how the road crew, is it mainly that they are working with each other that is different from how what they would be doing without a pandemic? Or is there other differences in how they're working?
Well, it's not so much the work they're doing. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, Lori, I was down near your house actually, or day before maybe. A large tree was across Lock Village Road, and I had myself and two other residents tried to move it by hand, and we couldn't. And I got halfway home and got cell service, so I called Rich at the highway barn, and he sent Alan and Johnny down with chainsaws to cut the tree down. And as they were there, 3 people came up. No one had masks on, and people are trying to be helpful, and these guys are in the middle of running a chainsaw trying to cut a tree down. And frankly, there's nobody there regulating what the public can do in a situation like that. But it came down to that the workers were exposed somewhat because people are around and tried to be helpful. They have people that show up when they're working on the road. They come up and just start talking to them. They can't avoid the public entirely, is the point, I guess. But for me, it's different than the workers at the RATS who are there specifically to meet the public. So there's a degree of exposure, but there's exposure nonetheless.
And do they wear masks themselves if they know they're supposed to wear?
Excuse me? I have actually, Joe Cuneo provided masks to me and to all of the town employees. But you can't, the public isn't wearing them. And so I guess that's just out there. That masks are a good idea, and I certainly encourage it. I wear one whenever I'm around anyone, but I don't know that that's a guarantee.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, I'll repeat what I said before, that the idea of an hourly boost when they're maybe having 3 or 4 or 5 or encounters during the week with public is different than the RATS employees who are seeing maybe a couple hundred people come through their gates and and sometimes have conversations, sometimes not, but there certainly is an encounter there. So it's different for people, different jobs. I will add to what Nancy said, that because of the low number of snow days we had this winter and a lower demand on maintenance, just by coincidence, that there is money in the highway budget for that. And also for the RATS, there is money in the budget because of the added revenues that we've been taking in. And as you all are aware, the higher efficiency that's been taking place there for the last year and more now. So in the end, I'm feeling like if we're going to do this, and if you're going to include other people, then I think we should maybe flush out this conversation about what's equitable and how do we determine what the amounts are.
Well, I agree with you, Phil, that the people that are really boots on the ground are the RATS people, and they have a higher degree of exposure, and then they should get a higher degree of, let's call it hazardous duty pay. I think it's good to call it that because it's more likely to get reimbursed that way. Also, the highway, they could be done on a much lower level. Exactly what the ratio would be is something we could talk about. I think maybe we need to talk about it with the finance committee. So I would suggest that we put it on our next agenda and talk to the finance committee about it, and with you also, Phil, have some time to think about it. The ratio between the the highway workers and the rats workers. Christine?
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, Dan.
It's okay
Are you done, Dan?
for now.
Lori asked a question and I didn't hear the answer. Do the highway crew wear masks? They should be wearing masks even if they're working with each other and nobody else around.
I cannot say that they have been. Rich does, I know that, but I know that I've seen the other guys, Alan and Johnny, out without masks on. And for instance, when they came down to cut that tree up, they were not wearing masks. So that's shame on them, and it should be. I'm not sure that we can make them. I'm not sure that it's a requirement. It's certainly advisable. It's certainly recommended. I mean, not just for them, it's for everybody they come around. They're as capable of spreading it as the next person. So I've stressed it. We've provided them with masks, and we'll go back in again and have this conversation that, you know, they really should be wearing them. But at that particular instance, no.
Okay, so I have a couple of comments on that. I mean, I think they should be really encouraged to wear masks. It's the understanding at the rats that they're supposed to be wearing masks. And
They
then
were,
wearing a
and
mask
I
also,
did.
yeah, and wearing a mask also protects them from the public that come up and talk to them. And in that issue, I wonder if we should just put a notice on the listserv to please stay away from the highway department and let them do their job. Even though you're trying to be helpful, it's not helpful in these times. That could just be a notice that we put out if we feel like it's needed.
That sounds good.
I'm
Does
done.
that sound okay to you,
Okay.
Phil? We can do that, I think. Lori?
I think that's a good idea, regardless of the other conversation, that they should be wearing masks and people should be. In fact, we put the highway department out of bounds to the public. So there shouldn't be anybody coming in there, at least. But, you know, if they're out working on the side of the road, they're getting people that just out of habit stop to talk or ask questions or other things. So they do have people that they encounter.
So who could write that? Do you want to write it, Phil? Or do you want me to, or somebody else, Nancy?
Which
Who's
part
going to be
about
responsible for
the listserv, maybe encouraging people to leave them alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that on. I'll also take on, you know, having another conversation about them wearing masks. And as far as our discussion tonight, we're going to go back to the FinCom and see if we can come up with some equitable amount. And Dan, did you want to include the other people that you mentioned in that conversation as well?
Well, I take Nancy's point and her generosity and saying that she's not really exposing herself. I do think there's some risk just going in the building, but
I do think that the fire department and first responders should be included, however.
Right.
And perhaps police, I don't know about what they're doing. And I certainly don't want to, you know, be turning down money for anybody else in the building. My personal standpoint, if I didn't feel as safe there as I do anywhere else, I probably wouldn't go in. But, you know, I have notarized things for people. We do it outside. I make them sit 6 feet away on a bench. And that's really been my only contact with anyone. I feel like I do a pretty good job going in and wiping things down when I get there and when I leave. But, you know, if my husband's overhearing this conversation, he's probably yelling at me, "What are you doing? Turn it down, money."
Yeah.
But that's my feeling.
I can hear him now. We can hear him going, Nancy.
Yeah, I know.
Lori?
So I was just thinking, I do think and I think we are in agreement with this conversation, that the main issue is exposure and the level of exposure. And I think I don't know how formalized this would need to be, but if we can say that rats workers might have 100% exposure risk based on what they're doing, then we could talk about other other employees and estimate what, how much of the time that they are working they might be at getting exposed or having a risk of exposure. And then maybe we could just make a calculation, if they're going to get $5 an hour and, the highway department is only at risk 10% of their time, then they might get 10% of that. So it's just a thought of how we might calculate it. And then, Nancy could come up with a number too. If she thinks she's, exposed to a certain percentage of her work day, then she could get that. And then the other just thought is this something that, in terms of time, I mean, this has already been happening, and would it be retroactive was one question. And I just worry about putting it off for another, or, whenever the FinCom is going to meet. Is this something we want to hurry to do so that we have it in place when they're going to get paid? And then, is it retroactive? So maybe it won't matter if we aren't hurrying if it's going to be retroactive.
I wondered that myself, Lori, and we raised that question at our meeting last night. And one thought was we could do it, if we did it this week, it would be for the current pay period, and then extend it through either the end of the fiscal year, because we have the budgets for it now. So either through the end of the fiscal year or till when the state lifts the state of emergency. If that happens on May 30th, then maybe that would be the end of it. I didn't know if it would be legal or lawful to do it retroactive. If we did, then I would say maybe go back to March 1 or something. But we could take that all up with the FinCom as far as the legality and the timelines.
Could we possibly meet next week on Wednesday night?
That was going to be my next suggestion. And we could maybe make this the only agenda item at the moment that we know of. Phil, would that be suitable for you?
That's fine. I can be available.
Would that be at 7 o'clock?
I heard you can't even. Okay.
Good question,
I understand
Lori.
you can't even drive down the road. I was saying, Dan, I've heard that you can't even drive down the road and find a restroom, so we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, my husband can tell you all about that. It's a lot of fun for truck drivers.
Oh, dear.
They've closed all the restaurants. There's no place to eat. There's nothing on the roads for them. It's terrible.
That is terrible. Well, pack him a good lunch.
Yeah. So I'll get a
Lori,
hold of the FinCom, and if they're good with that next Wednesday.
I wanted to ask people about that because we did the last sort of semi-emergency meeting last week at 6 p.m. And that actually works a little better for me. I wondered what everybody else thought.
It's okay with me.
Fine with me.
Christine?
I missed the first part, Dan. Did you say 6 p.m.?
I just was saying that the last meeting, emergency meeting we did was at 6 p.m. last week, and that actually works better for me, and I'm wondering how it works for others.
Oh, that's fine with me. I could go anytime during the day even, it doesn't matter.
Christine?
6 o'clock's fine for me. 6
Okay.
is okay.
Let's say 6 p.m. next week. And
Okay.
Nancy, can you alert the FinCom?
I will, and I'll give them the background. And my thing also, I don't want to keep harping on the money thing, and it's great that the highway department has enough to take care of their employees and the rats, but if we extend this much further, depending on how much money we're talking, that could add up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And there certainly is no money. My account line is just my salary. There is no extra money. Then you have to start dipping into reserve fund, and he was talking about $6,600 for the highway department people. Well, I think our reserve fund is $12,000. And hopefully we'll get all of this back. But I just think back to when we had the ice storm and we were involved with FEMA, and it was a long time before we were reimbursed.
Yep. Sure was.
Years.
Yeah, it was terrible. So anyway, I'll check with the FinCom, and hopefully we can iron this out next week.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everybody
I'll plan on that as well.
Everybody good on that?
Yep.
Mhm.
All set.
Okay.
CDBG funding for broadband hookup.
Okay. Well,
Go ahead, Nancy.
I just wanted to say the thing before that debt exclusion letter for the town clerk.
Oh, sorry.
This is
Yeah.
a formality, so when you sign the warrants, I will leave this letter out. The debt exclusion wording has already been given to the town clerk. It's actually already on the ballot. Everybody's aware of it, but you need to officially sign the letter with the wording for it. So I'll add that to the signature things in the box tomorrow.
Okay.
Is it the full board or just the chair?
The whole board. Or whichever two come in to sign the warrant, as
Right.
long as we've got two signatures, that's fine.
Christine?
I just want to say that I sent the minutes back to Liam today, so we should have them tomorrow. So they should
Okay, I
be
can print
available to
those.
sign pretty quickly too. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, after he revises them.
Yep. Okay.
And so I'm willing to go up and sign papers tomorrow or any day.
Okay, I can do that too, Lori. So you could take a day off if you want.
Okay, sure.
Okay. I will email everybody when everything's ready for signatures. How's that?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so the CDBG funding, I think this was taken up by the broadband committee. Did we get anywhere with whether or not this is worth pursuing?
Yes, they took a vote to recommend that we do pursue it. And there was an outstanding question, which I got an answer from Brian today. He asked whether or not it was the homeowners or the town who owns the wires that we are going to be getting funding for. And we clarified that it was the town, and it sounds like that was not what he was, that was not sort of in the plans, and that generally they wouldn't be funding using this grant to fund town-owned infrastructure, which is what it is. If you can remember, we asked him for an infrastructure grant, and he didn't want to do that. So, but in his email today, he said, well, we might have to make it an infrastructure grant instead.
Yeah.
So it sounded like it's not dead because of that. He sounds like that might be a way to shift it. And he did still want us to vote to put aside the grant money for this purpose. So we, in the broadband, voted that we do this as well. So what, I guess I can make a motion that the select board would like to request that $30,000 of our CDBG grant money is set aside for the purpose of funding broadband drops for homeowners.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think it's a good idea. It's sort of a why not attitude in my mind, because some people might find it very, very helpful.
Yep. And I think Alistair had talked to at least one person who said they would like it, they would use it. So
Good.
everybody thought it was a good idea.
Great. So next item, Christine, is the oldest citizen. Do we have any new data on that?
We do. You all know that Al's dad died, Ray. And so I asked Gretchen who the oldest citizen is now. It is Lena O'Doux, Donna's mother, who lives down on Bear Mountain Road. She's the oldest citizen now. So this would be one little thing maybe that we can take care of. I don't think we can all go visit her and present it to her, but maybe we can figure out how to do that. But we would need the pin and a certificate if we're going to do that award in the near future.
Okay, I can get both the pin and the certificate ready, and then we can figure out how we're going to award it to her.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So the next thing on the list is more of a prickly issue. I'm sure you all got the email that came from the Flower Guy's lawyer
Yeah.
about the concept of a moratorium. Nan Reed-Schlager had indicated she was going to be checking with the Attorney General's office. I have not heard back from her, but I have a pretty strong feeling that the lawyer is correct.
Me too.
And in that case, you know, we're going to have to move forward. I think that we can easily put them off if you don't want to discuss it. I know there were a lot of people interested in voicing their opinion about this. But the fact is, if we can't have a moratorium and it is the law and we don't have anything in place, the next best thing is to come up with some kind of host community agreement that has some benefits to the town. But it's kind of hard to do in the middle of, you know, the COVID virus and phone meetings.
Yeah. Christine?
Well, I think we should go forward with this. Actually, in my opinion, from what I know, this sounds like a really sensible project that fits into Wendell's lifestyle, growing things organically with a lot of safeguards in place. So my question is, do we have any host community agreements that we can look at? It's a question for Nancy.
That's what we need
they
to
gave
do.
us, yeah, they gave us some samples, but we have an application in New Salem, and it's for a retail shop, and it's different. But what they actually did was gave us what they wanted for a host community agreement as a starting point. And I'm not sure, maybe that's what we should be asking for from them. We've never written one of these before. You know, we don't really know what to include in them, and we can look at other towns, but you know, I don't know.
I think that's a good idea, Nancy. Why don't we ask them for what they would like to see for a host agreement? We can start with that, and we can also get other towns and look at those.
Yeah.
If they give us one, it sounds like it might, like Christine says, the size of this project and the details of it are sort of Wendell-esque, sort of like Wendell. And maybe the community host agreement would be likewise. We could see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a retail shop, so we can't do the 3% sales tax. I think that you can ask them to make donations to some charitable thing, and I don't know what the rules are, if it could be anything. I'm thinking, could they make a donation to Good Neighbors, or does it have to be somehow related to marijuana? You know, I don't know quite what that is, and you know, are we going to expend any money on infrastructure that we would be asking them for money for? And I don't know what that would look like.
It seems to me the only expense. I'm sorry, Nancy.
No, go ahead.
It seems to me the only expense I can come up with is a potential policing and some amount of time like that we're spending now and the planning board would. So I would think if we can make a case for a very low percent, I mean, we can go up to 3%. I'm thinking of 0.5% or something, just so we have a little income from it.
Mm-hmm. And that only lasts 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So, they were supposed to have sent we're going to ask them what they would like to see in it. Is that what we're saying?
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I believe they have sent us some samples, and I can forward those to you if I think you've got them. But it's going back a few months now.
Yeah.
But ask them, yeah, thanks for the samples. Why don't you write up what you would like to see and let us look at it and have our lawyer look at it, and we need a starting point to negotiate from, and I don't think that we have
Yeah.
one.
Right, that's right. I agree. But I do want to be responsive to them. And my question is, which I don't know if it matters to us specifically, but have they applied to the planning? Do they need to apply for a special permit to the planning board? And if so, have they done that?
I think that comes
So
So
after.
maybe Nancy, when you're
Yeah.
talking to them, you could ask.
Yeah, I think that they have to get the
You
host
think it
community
comes
agreement
after the
first.
host?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that
So
has to
let's
come
do
first.
that. Let's get going on that. Okay.
Okay. So I will, of course, write them a groveling letter saying, yeah, sorry that
Yeah.
we messed
Right. You don't
Well,
have
can I say, I don't know if we necessarily need to rush or anything. I would definitely like to make sure we read up on it, and we definitely check with the lawyer.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we have a firm answer before I do anything.
And get more community input, I think would also be good. I might like to go out like you did, Chris, and look at the property, get a better feel for what you can imagine the impact be on that neighborhood.
Hi,
Okay.
this is Dan Leahy on Bullard Pasture Road. Would this be an appropriate time for me to comment on this?
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
If it's brief, please.
Pardon me?
If it's brief.
Sure. Well, I just feel that we're putting the cart before the horse. We don't really know what type of project the Apple guy is putting forward to the planning board, and I would like to ask the select board not to move forward with a host agreement or a town outreach meeting or any other decisions until, one, we find out what's going on with the zoning and the moratorium. I obviously haven't seen this email from their attorney. I'm concerned that the town of Wendell is letting the applicant and his lawyer really dictate the process rather than us being in the driver's seat and knowing all the answers to the questions. And the lawyer is obviously going to advocate for his client. And I'm hearing that this would be a Wendell-esque type project, an organically grown product. But commercial marijuana cultivation is not covered under the right to farm. And I'm sure that the legislature, when they created the law, felt that it was a different type of a crop, and that I did a little research about Lucas there, and he had a very contentious meeting in his hometown of Harvard where more than 80 people showed up and they were opposed to his project. So although he shows up here in some very mild-mannered way, he has had some adversary on his home turf, and we also did some research and saw, and I can't tell you the exact date of this situation, but it would have been before it was legal, but this was a press account of Lucas Thayer being pulled over in a 20...
Excuse me, Dan, excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
This is taking quite a bit of time. We have a lot of other things on our agenda. I can assure you that we're not putting the cart before the horse. All we're doing is asking them for a draft for an agreement, and this will be the subject of much discussion coming up, at which point
Okay.
we can listen further to your comments and from other people. There will be
Okay.
a wider discussion, but we're
Okay.
really just taking the first mini step towards even starting to think about this. So I think we got
Okay.
your point, and
Okay,
we'll talk further in the future.
very good. I
And I
appreciate,
would say,
I
Dan,
appreciate-
whatever you have, if you could put it in an email and send it, that would be great, so that we can just look at it outside of the meeting and, you know, have that information.
okay, I'll have to figure that out. I have no access to the internet right now. The library's closed, and that's been my source of the internet, so.
Okay.
But as Dan said, there'll be adequate time, and if I see if I can get some of these other concerns in a note or a letter to you, I'll do that.
Great.
That would be great. I mean, an actual physical letter would be fine if you want to do that. And,
Okay.
yeah, like I said, this will be a slow process. There will be plenty of time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan, and I want to thank the rest of the board for allowing me to speak this evening.
Sure thing. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Are we good on marijuana?
I think so. Okay, are we all set for the next thing here?
Yep.
Okay, so just a quick update. I don't know if you remember back in November or December, Maya gave us a grant for about $3,500 to purchase some fireproof cabinets for the highway department to store their flammables in. So we did have those delivered last month. We've received the bill, and I've sent it off to Maya. They'll pay them directly. So I think that's a really good step forward with the highway department. I don't know if you've ever been in that little garage off the main building, but it's just chock full of chemicals and flammables, and they're all just sitting out on open shelves.
I've been there.
And if there were ever a fire in that building, that would be pretty dangerous location. So this will go a long way towards helping that.
Great.
Good.
And we've talked about the RAF's pay increase, but the last thing that's not on here but did come up in an earlier email was from the Concom about holding some kind of public hearing.
Right.
I don't know if anybody has read anything allowing this. I know I haven't seen anything, but maybe there's something out there. It just seems like if people don't have electronic access, they certainly can't be part of that.
Right.
I don't know how that would work, but open to any ideas anyone has. I think it would be great if we could figure this out, but I'm having a hard time with it.
So,
Yeah, I don't know how you hold a
I
public
did
hearing.
see,
Sorry, Christine?
so I read in the paper that the state held a public hearing where people could send in comments. I don't think it was like open to phone calls during the meeting. I'm not sure, but the state did figure out how to do it. So we should be able to do it as well. And Laurie wanted to say something too.
I just was going to say, I did read, you know, what the executive order and the legislation that touched on this. And I mean, it wasn't very clear, but I think it basically said it's whatever access is required for a certain type of hearing, as long as you can abide by that, then you should be okay. So I guess I don't know exactly what kind of access is required for specific types of public hearings. But the other thought is that we're going to need to do a public hearing for the CDBG grant as well. And Brian has talked about he's going to have to figure out how that's going to work. So I think it's something we can do. We're going to have to figure it out. The state is going to allow us to figure something out. I don't know exactly what that is yet.
So
Christine?
can we ask Nancy, do you feel comfortable trying to figure out that information from the state, or do you think we should ask Attorney Dineski?
How about I try to find it out, and if I can't find something that I'm comfortable with, then I'll ask him as a last resort.
Okay,
Sounds good.
good. Thank you.
Yeah, and so is the Concom, they're just updating their bylaws, their regular bylaws. I don't think that requires a full public hearing. And I'd have to check with them as well. I think, it requires an open meeting where people can come and comment, but
Okay. Well, I guess that would be the first step, to see exactly what is required for a Concom hearing or whatever they're looking for, and then to figure
Yeah.
out with the state how to do it.
and that might solve this problem, might not necessarily solve the CDBG problem, but at least one thing at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Christine?
I don't have anything. I just was the minutes and that. So that's all. I'm all set.
Lori?
I definitely have a few things, sorry. One which came up last night is a clarification of what we need to confirm about the broadband service and billing for the town buildings. I think when I asked you this question before, Nancy, I wasn't clear on what we were looking for. So what WG&E wants to know is where the bills should go. So what the email and phone contact information should be in terms of billing for broadband, the new broadband service. So
Okay, this is for municipal service in town buildings. So what are the towns being charged for? The whole thing?
Internet, well, so it can be internet or phone. The other question was, does every building want internet and phone service? Which I think is probably a yes, except for maybe the police station, which Ray said Ed has something else going on there. I don't know if you know about that.
Well, Ed is still using Access Plus because it took them a while to set up their CGIS system through that, and he refused to do it again when we had better broadband. But I think at some point, kicking and screaming, we need to bring the police service to high-speed internet somehow. And if Ed doesn't know how to do it, that's fine. I'm sure we can figure out another way to have, I think Chris Maselli is a little more tech savvy. Maybe he can figure it out for him. But I guess my question is, in New Salem, they're not charging town buildings for internet. So it sounds as though if we're charging town buildings, do we want to just put it all under one account and then I can just take care of it? Similar to what we do with the Crocker account, we just have a line for internet service. And if that's the case, we need to figure out how many buildings are getting it and how much it's going to be per building, and then that will have to be a FinCom budget request. But until we know from the MLP what charges are going to be, and I think that New Salem, it's all the same pool of money. Obviously, we're taking it out of one pocket from the building accounts and putting it into the MLP account, and they decided that was just a waste of paperwork. So they're only charging for the phone for some reason. I don't know why that was different, but
it does make sense to. It does make sense to not go through all that paperwork of transferring money around. It's town business, and why make the town pay for town business?
So we are trying to keep all those funds separate because we're going to have the enterprise fund that's self-sustaining for the business. But I don't know, has this ever been brought up at the broadband meetings? I don't think I've ever been there when it's been discussed, the possibility.
So, well, maybe we should discuss it in the broadband and have Dan be there too.
So either way, I think from my perspective, whether it's phone and internet or phone or internet, whatever the configuration is that the broadband committee decides that the town should be paying, I think it's easier if the bills all go through me through one account rather than have have it be broadband for town hall and broadband for town office. That gets kind of messy. I would rather have one big bill, one account, if that's possible.
Yeah, that sounds
I think
like it
probably
should
will
be
be.
possible.
Mhm. So it seems good, a good idea, one account. And it could be that they need to have an account, a sort of a place in the system. There just might not be any charge for it since it's town government, but they may need that information about a person and a phone number and also what we want from what the different departments want, phone, internet,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yep.
Do you envision any of the buildings not wanting both of those things?
Well, the problem with the voice over internet is still comes back to buildings with alarms. We have to have those lines. And I don't know the technical aspects. I'm being told by some people that, in fact, the alarms can be run through the internet. Others are saying no. I guess that's a question for Westfield Gas and Electric. We still have 2 regular Verizon lines even in the town office building because of our alarm. The library doesn't have voice over internet because of alarm lines. The fire station doesn't have voice over internet because of alarm lines. So those 3 buildings, right there.
So could we plan to, just in terms of going forward, if the town office is doing both, it has voiceover and the alarm, line, can we just plan that we would probably do that for the library and the fire station if we needed to? If the voiceover won't cover what we need for alarms?
Well, and if that's the case, they probably don't need the voice over internet at all because they're using their phone lines for alarm, but they're also phone lines. They're regular
So why
in the
did you
backup.
put it that way at the town offices?
So we have voice over internet for a bunch of other lines. We have a lot of different extensions in the office where the library only had like 2.
I get you.
And the regular line was used as a backup for the alarm, so they couldn't even get rid of that.
Okay. So it's
So
the
maybe
library,
we
the
should-
fire station, those are the 2 buildings that have alarms, no others?
Library, the town office, and the fire station are alarmed.
No.
And we didn't bother doing we didn't bother doing voice over internet in like town hall because the phone is not used very often there. But it would be a big savings if we were to keep a line in there to get rid of the Verizon line and just put voice over internet there. Again, the police station is still operating off of Access Plus.
And what about the senior center?
Do they have a phone over there? Trying to
Maybe
remember.
not.
Yeah, I think they do, and I don't think that's ever been hooked up because they again we're still sort of operating off of the wireless from somewhere. I don't know that they have a direct connection, but they probably should.
So do you think it would be good to have Alistair or Lou talk to Nancy and help her figure out what the choices are and get in touch with the different departments? I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about much.
What do you think, Nancy?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to either one of them. We could make up, a spreadsheet and figure out what needs to go in each building.
I think that's a
Okay,
good
so
idea.
I'll get in touch.
Lou is the one.
What did you say, Lori?
I think Lou is the better one to talk to
Better.
rather than Alistair.
All right, I'll ask Lou to get in touch with you, Nancy, and work with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for doing all this broadband stuff.
And just to, I guess maybe this will come out when you talk to Lou, but I couldn't tell if we were deciding that we were going to make the police station switch to broadband now, or if that was something for the future. Just to keep that in mind as when you're talking to Lou, you know,
Yeah.
is there more that needs to be figured out to make that decision about the police station?
Yeah, I mean, Ed definitely is going to have to be involved in that. The problem is that they have this CJIS, this criminal justice information service. It's a dedicated line, and it's got all this extra high security on it. And it took a while when we initially went to internet for him to make that transition. And he was very uncomfortable with doing it again when we switched from our Crocker line or our Country Road Network line over to our Crocker when we got the high-speed internet in the town buildings. He didn't want anything to do with it. That's why we pay 2 internet bills now. We pay $150 to Access Plus, and then we pay the, $600 or $700 a month to Crocker. And it's for the police station that we keep that separate line, but I don't think that he can keep it forever. I just don't see there's a need for it, especially if we're going to be getting a new police chief.
Yeah. At the very least, we should probably put a drop at the police station, even if they don't
Yes.
take service. And I also think it would be really good to get Chris Maselli involved in this conversation. Although it's not like he knows a whole lot about internet, but he's at least in favor of it.
Yeah.
So we'll hook you up with Lou, Nancy.
Okay. Sounds good.
Laura, you
Okay.
have a list of things?
I was going to bring up the whole trees on the common. I guess, but I guess Corinne emailed you guys too, right, about the June 1st removing the trees. My only concern was if she hasn't moved out of town. I will update you. She was going to move, but then when the pandemic came, she chose to stay because she was going to move into some kind of a senior housing facility, and she didn't want to do that. So she is still in town. She's willing to continue through to the election. But then because it's an elected position, I guess I'm not sure how, I think my understanding is we can't just let her continue after she's done with her position, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And then I was just had a little worried that we would do taking down it might be a little bit of a not controversial, but there might be some people out there who aren't going to be happy about trees coming down on the common. So I just want to make sure when we did it, it was all on the up and up. But it sounds like if she can get it done on June 1st, that might be okay.
So because she's an elected official, she's now in office until the election, which is June 1st. So she can't just bow out like that. And we should, I guess, be looking for someone as a write-in candidate for that position.
Right, yes. That would be good.
No ideas here, but. So
Okay.
I think we should go ahead with having the trees cut. I think it needs to be done. It's a danger.
That sounds fine. I probably didn't even need to bring that one up.
No, it's good.
I think the June 1st date was later after she had solidified that, and I was worried it was going to go into June. But all right, so I think my last thing was just to confirm or discuss a little more how we want to handle these meetings. If we want to continue to put the videos up or the recordings up, and if and how we would want to invite people to join, in the future. I just want to clarify that.
Do we know how Dan Leahy arrived?
I don't. Maybe.
No, yeah, he called the other day, and I told him I think that because we do have to post this information, and he was talking about a number of people being, and I said it's an open meeting, anyone can call in, but understand that the more people that call in, these are difficult meetings to get through anyway, and it makes the select board's job that much more difficult. So I think I had virtually understood that he was going to send me a letter of some kind. I was a little surprised that he was on the call. But clearly anybody can walk up to the town office, look at the posting, and call into these meetings.
Right. So Lori,
and
do we
there's,
know
you know-
more about Zoom and, well, you said we can mute anybody that calls in.
Yes, so we can set it up so that everybody is muted until we unmute them. So
Well,
I'll give you what I have recently found out, though, is that we are officially not supposed to do concurrent meetings, and the assessors is always concurrent with our meeting. I figured out a trick so that we're able to do it tonight, and I could do that any other time, but it does limit my control over this meeting. Like right now, I wanted to mute Phil, but I couldn't. So there might be some issues with that we might have to delve into a little bit more. But if we were just doing the regular meeting, I could definitely have everyone be muted, and then I could unmute the people who, you know, were going to be speaking, and we could work it that way. Go ahead, Christine.
Who is having a meeting concurrently with us? What?
The assessors.
Uh-huh.
There's ways we can, I mean, they could, we're talking about getting their own Zoom account, so that's always possible. I don't know.
They usually meet earlier anyway, don't they? Don't they start at 6?
They start at 6:30, so we definitely overlap.
Mm-hmm.
So
really,
we
Lori, you
figure that out.
asked,
Go ahead.
you figured out a way around it anyway. I think you asked 2 questions, really, Lori. And it seems to me one was, should we continue to make these meetings open to the public? And the second was, how would we run the meetings? Is that correct?
No, I think they're always going to be open to the public. I think it was more openly advertise them in case we want to have it more open. Like we could put the access details on the listserv or on the website if we wanted. Because I thought Dan at one point was saying maybe we should have them be more open. But the second question was, Dan put the recording of our last meeting up on the listserv so people can still see what we're talking about. And I wasn't sure if that's something we're going to do every time, and if we even want to put some of our past meetings up somewhere. I'd prefer we try to put them on the website rather than the listserv, but I guess either way it doesn't matter. So those were the 2 questions.
So let's stick with the first question, which is, what's the first question?
Do we want to make the access details more visible to the public to encourage people to come to the meetings? Which would
So
mean
my
yeah, go ahead.
My opinion is we should put it on the website only and on the posting.
That sounds good to me.
it's fine with me.
Okay, Dan? Okay. So then the second question is, do we want to make the recordings available? I can't see any problem with, what's that?
Sorry. I just said after the meeting, make them available.
After the meeting, right. I don't see any problem with that.
No, that's good.
And we could do just audio if we wanted to. But either way.
You mean to make the recording available just as an audio?
Right. Rather than, because the last video that we sent out, it doesn't have this nice gallery view. As far as I can tell, the recordings just show who's speaking. And so it's jumping around and it's delayed. And you're seeing the little phone thing rather than faces half the time. So it wasn't that great. But Dan said people liked it.
I heard that too. I heard people, just like we all enjoyed that meeting, even people who watched it enjoyed it. So
I think putting the video up is good, Lori, because it gives people a better idea of who's talking.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Just the audio, there would be very little clue as to who was talking.
Right, you're right. And did you want to continue to do that on the listserv, Dan, or should we find a way to put that on the website? Which I know Robert actually seemed to try to do something on the website that didn't seem that ideal, because it sounded like you had to be at the library to access it. But we can look into that more, rather just do it on the website.
I think the listserv is fine also. Why not do both?
All right, so I'll just send you those links after each meeting if you want to be the one to do that.
I can do that, yep. Thank you.
So then I think how we run a meeting with the public present is a third question to talk about.
Well, if we can mute everybody that comes on until a public comment period at the end, it would be much easier.
I agree.
Okay, so I'll make sure I know how to do that for the next meeting, and if it means that the assessors, we're gonna have to find a solution to that issue, then we'll figure it out.
My question is, since you don't see me, how will you know if I have something to say if I'm muted?
I think I could know who you are and unmute you from the beginning. So I would unmute via the key players from the beginning.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody invited would be unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's it.
Onward.
Good. Well, the only thing I had was annual town meeting, and that can wait till next time. It's something I think we should talk to the FinCom about, to start thinking about. If the FinCom thinks we really should make an effort to do it before the end of the fiscal year somehow, whether it's by Zoom or what, however, or if the FinCom thinks that we can delay it under the new guidelines. But I think it's food for thought. We can all start thinking about it and talk to the FinCom about it next week.
Let's talk to the FinCom at our next regular meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. And I mean, I think that they'll have plenty to say about it, but I almost feel as though it would be good to wait until May 4th, when the initial governor's declaration is supposedly ending, to see whether and for how long they extend it, because that might have a great deal of bearing on what we can do.
Yep.
So that would mean putting it off longer than our next meeting, which would be all right.
Yes, because our next meeting is still in April.
Mm-hmm. Let's say we do it at the first meeting after May 4th.
First meeting in May, okay.
That sounds fine.
Well, but if we have, the first meeting, if we have a special meeting, we can invite them if we want.
Okay. Sounds good.
Everybody happy?
Anything else, Dan?
Yeah, we're so excited.
You know, these meetings are a challenge, but they really do make me feel good.
Well, I feel very good about our team.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's really working together, and we've got a lot of great talent.
Yeah, I think it's great because I don't know that my other team that I'm working with does such a good job. So I appreciate Wendell.
Well, good luck with that, Nancy.
Oh.
Yeah, there's some contention there, and it seems to carry over.
Well, we appreciate you, Nancy.
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
Very much.
Well, we'll get through this one way or another.
Stick together.
For sure.
All right. Well, everybody have a good night, and I'll be communicating with you tomorrow.
Thanks, Nancy.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Thanks, Christine
Good night, Dan.
and Yana, or whenever. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Left me. Well, we're gone, it's okay. Dad, you're gonna get hammered. Bishop, do you need to go outside and throw up?